Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Stonehall Sports with me, LP Cruz. It's week one of the NFL season and the NFL is finally back for our Dallas Cowboys. Lots of changes from last year's roster. No Amari Cooper, no Lyle Collins, and a lot of key players are no longer around. But the expectations in Dallas are still high, as they should be. And the Cowboys open the season once again against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who the Bucs are still a veteran team and should compete in this year's NFC. So tonight on the channel, what I wanted to do was preview Cowboys Bucs alongside a very special guest. So joining the show tonight from deep in the heart of Texas, of Real Sports DFW and East Texas Radio, it's Steven Johnston. Stevie, what's up, man?
What's going on, LP? Thank you very much for having me on.
Man, thanks for stopping by, man. What's happening?
Oh, just winding down the day pretty much. We were actually going to do something, I guess a week or two ago, and I conked out. I was like, look, 9 p.m. is late for me, you know, so I wanted to be sure that we picked it back up and got something in. So I appreciate you having me on, man.
Likewise, man. Likewise for stopping by, making the time and following through. We had to do it right, and tonight we're going to do it right. So
absolutely.
But I know you're a busy guy around town. But tell the people who don't know about you, tell them about your background with the Cowboys and what you're currently doing covering the Cowboys. You got a lot going on these days.
Yeah. So background-wise, I started out at UNT. I come from their RTBF program, radio, television, and film. I really got my foot in the door covering the Dallas Cowboys while working promotions at 105.3 The Fan and then interning a show at 105.3 The Fan, kind of behind the scenes, assistant producing, that type of thing. Tons of fun. And then after graduating from North Texas, got a job as the sports director at East Texas Broadcasting. We have 10 radio stations all throughout East Texas and Mount Pleasant, Paris, Sulphur Springs. The whole 903 is just about covered by our company. So that's fantastic. I hosted a sports talk show there for years and years. I've gotten into different things. Writing for Fansided, Sport DFW right now is a place that you can find my work. And, as far as the Dallas Cowboys, a lot of it is for fun. We're pecking away on Twitter. We're, shooting them off and, it's a good time, but it's also really rewarding to be able to write and to talk and to, have people listen to what you say and enjoy the content that you put out. And I, for one, always enjoy the content that you put out, LP.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And likewise, man, likewise. And it's the wild, wild west on Twitter, on these Cowboy streets. So it's a great time and glad to have you on the show, man. A lot of things we need to discuss because this is a big time game on the schedule, albeit week one still. Spectacle aside, huge game to talk about. But actually, we got some news and notes to talk about. So the one thing I wanted to do before we talk about the Cowboys game and matchups is business. And that business is Jason Peters. So the Cowboys on Monday, Labor Day, had talks beforehand, back and forth conversations, but they made it official with Jason Peters on Monday. So without talking about too much big picture and what this means going forward, in your mind, does Jason Peters start week one against Tampa?
No, I think all indications have pretty much pointed towards Tyler Smith being the left tackle week one, which, look, Tampa Bay's got a really good pass rush. They've got good edge rushers, and so that's going to be a challenge for a guy who's making his first start in the NFL, a guy who, by all intents and purposes, was pretty much headed towards being the starting left guard, no matter what we were told by Mike McCarthy, that time he was out with an ankle injury, and he told us that Connor McGovern would start today. It's like, yeah, but Tyler Smith's not practicing, so yeah, he would start today, I guess. But so we go from that to now Tyler Smith is going to be your starting left tackle, and there's got to be a ramp up period for Jason Peters. We're coming to the end of the week, into the practice week as well. So I would be stunned if they made a roster move to take him off the practice squad, to add him to the active roster, and to plug him in at left tackle. The only reservation I kind of have against that, though, is last year when he signed with the Bears, he did sign and step in immediately. So obviously, this is a different organization. They operate differently. They'll handle their player personnel differently. And everything shows and tells us that they're going to take it. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Yeah, one step at a time. And man, everybody's kind of got their fingers crossed as to how this Tyler Smith at left tackle, Connor McGovern at left guard situation is going to go. But I think that's what we're going to get week 1.
So while I agree, I think we kind of agree with their plan, their process, and it's pragmatic, it's practical. At the end of the day, it's Jason Peters. So I'm baffled by that, and I can see where you're coming from, and it makes a lot of football sense. It does. But a decorated veteran with those kind of skins on the wall, it feels like he should play right away. He can kind of understand something. Now, there could be a thing with terminology, communication, which we'll talk about with this game especially. But it feels like it makes the most prudent sense to play the guy, have your guy that you have as a first round pick you believe is your guard of the future, essentially. Why not do it? Just why not throw the guy in? And
well, I think a part of it is, remember, he is 40. And I think that we've had enough discussions about how us aging folk try to get out there and hoop it up, or play a little pickup football or whatever the case may be, just going for a standard workout at the gym. And we kind of noticed that, those knees, what I'm saying?
Hey man, hey, look, speak for yourself. I dunked last week, so speak for yourself. But
okay, he's still getting up there then.
Got that air,
okay,
man.
But the point is, you're looking at a whole spring and a whole summer.
Right.
I believe that Jason Peters has been active. I mean, like you said, he's a veteran. He knows where he needs to be. But 40 in this sport, I would think that you still need a little bit of time to kind of grease the wheels and get yourself going again. Even though, again, I kind of contradict myself in a way whenever I say, well, again, just last year he did step in and start right away for the Bears. So I'm glad they're taking that cautious approach. I think it's a more responsible thing to do, especially considering Jason Peters still, even though he played 15 games last year, has an injury history. People need to realize and understand that we are yet again and still one fragile step away from being in the situation we were in as Tyron Smith went down. So this is a guy that we do need to kind of ease along, and I think they're doing the right thing by kind of gradually getting him acclimated.
It's a great point. I mean, there's a part of thinking with our hearts as Cowboy fans to want the problem fixed right away, but sensibilities do override what we want. So no, you're right about that. So let's dive right in. So the Cowboys defense, and I'm a offensive guy, so I like to keep the offense for last. But Cowboys defense against the Bucs offense, and where do you see the Cowboys having a spot where they may have an advantage? Now, I do think the Cowboys do have an advantage with this Bucs offense, and not to heist the mic too much. Do you think the Cowboys go into this game, on paper at least, with an advantage over Tom Brady and his offense?
I think the advantage comes from what Tampa Bay has lost over the offseason. I mean, it's going to kind of be the same story the other way around too. But when you're talking about the Cowboys defense versus the Bucs offense, their starting center went down. They lost both guards. Alex Kappa, I believe, went to the Bengals, and then Ali Marpet, he retired. And so they're bringing new guys in. They did a great job, though. I mean, with Shaq Mason, I mean, that's obviously a great replacement there. But on the other side is a second-round rookie who is a tad undersized. He kind of has the same similar type of build as Connor Williams did, 6'5",
kind
around
of smallish.
40. Yeah, a
Lightish.
little leaner. Yeah, not quite the heavy set, big dump truck of a guy you would want at guard. Definitely not a Ronald Leary type of guy,
Mm.
uh, but a little longer, a little leaner. But second round pick in the NFL draft, they expect him to come in and make a contribution in some way, shape, or form, just as we expect from our second round pick, Sam Williams, on the other side of the ball. But it's still a big loss to lose those mainstays that they had in Jensen, Ali Marpet, Alex Kappa. I mean, when you think of the Tampa Bay Bucks offensive line, those three guys were it. And of course, they drafted Tristan Wirfs a couple of seasons ago, and that's gone incredibly. But even he's dealing with recovering from an ankle. I think there was a little bit of an oblique situation that he had this summer. So, how healthy is he? I think he's going to play, but that ankle injury was pretty significant whenever he sustained it back in January, I believe it was. So we're going to have to see how he recovers from that. But man, I really think that they can get interior pressure on the Bucks, and that's just not something that Tom Brady is used to. You would think
Amen.
I'm saying it. You would think
Amen.
in a 1,600 year career that Tom Brady has had, that at some point maybe they didn't have the best interior offensive line. But then I think, and I'm like, okay, but when has Tom Brady played behind a weak guard center guard combination? And I can't think of it. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's always had guys. He's had guys up front to be his protection up front, right? And it's funny because that Pat Beverly thing of licking your chops, you get excited, right? So looking at this matchups, and I mean from matchup from to a man, I feel like there is a lot, like you said, a lot of confidence based on what they don't have. And to that regard, what aspect, and I'm sure you probably already gave it away, but what aspect gives you the most confidence of us attacking this Bucks offense as a whole?
Yeah, it's that interior offensive line, and obviously the Dallas Cowboys have some defensive tackles that need to prove that they're ready to take a step. Talking about Gallimore, talking about Osa Odigizua. There's actually more recently been some buzz on Bohanna. We saw him at the top of the depth chart as the one tech over Gallimore, which the whole point of him, remember, he put on weight. He put on, 10 pounds or so that he could play more of that one technique. And then the depth chart comes out and it's got Quentin Bohanna as the starter. And then Micah Parsons says later on that he expects Bohanna to take a huge step forward this year. So those are some interesting comments from him. But Micah Parsons is the reason why I feel like they'll attack that center, because, John Owning, he tweeted out earlier today that he had kind of heard some whispers about how the Dallas Cowboys defense, how Dan Quinn planned to use Micah Parsons against Tampa Bay in week 1. And he was really excited about it. Now, we don't know what that means. We don't necessarily know what the plan is. He was cryptic about it. He kept it, under wraps, as he should. But to me, the first thing I think of is A and B gap. The center, between the center and guard, between the guard and tackles. Let's attack those newcomers. Let's attack those down the depth chart guys, those young guys that lack experience. And I think if you put Micah Parsons in a position where he's getting point A to point B to a quarterback who is as great as he is, this is not, let's just talk smack and, down Tom Brady. But he's 45 years old. He's got some personal stuff in his life going on, and he's a master of preparation. How much does the personal stuff interfere with the preparation? He's still going to prepare. He's still going to be great.
Of course.
But to the level that he has always, I mean, this is some significant personal stuff going on that would affect any human being that's going through it, So I think that the use of Micah Parsons some stunts and twists, of course, getting Sam Williams. This is where I think that he can come into play with his strength, just that natural, raw, bulldozing type strength that he has. Man, I would not be stunned if they test that backup center, that rookie guard early and often.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like what you're saying, and I do think that's a major plus for the Cowboys. And you said the stunts up front. That is Osa's like favorite jam right there. So no, I like it a lot. I do, and maybe kind of pro tuned to the outside, the speed on the outside. But I think also a plus for the Cowboys versus last year, especially, is the receiving options. Like they've lost a lot on the outside too. Like there's no AB to terrorize you on the outside. He's gone. I don't know what he's doing these days. He's making bad trap songs. He's gone though, right? So there's no Gronk anymore. There's no Gronk anymore. So I mean, a lot of that kind of bodes well into the Cowboys, and I feel like the Cowboys have gotten better. And as great as Diggs was last year, I feel like he can be even better. Anthony Brown might be ascending as well, and there's more of an insurance with our secondary. So I feel like a lot of that bodes well for the Cowboys. I'm excited about what they can do on the outside. It may be a game where Tampa is actually very dependent upon having to check it down, be passive on offense, get the ball out quickly, So I do like that a whole lot. And I want to flip this question on its side because we talked a lot of optimism here. But what part about the Bucs offense makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable maybe?
Well, it's funny you saying exactly what you just said. And first, I want to kind of go back to your point about the receiving options. There was a type of guy that Dallas handled very well, and there was a type of guy that Dallas corners had trouble with. The bigger receiver, the Cowboys handled. I mean, you talk about Mike Evans, he did nothing. You talk about, Keenan Allen didn't just go off with the Chargers and, so on and so forth. There was a trend of that. It was the smaller, shifty guys, the Antonio Browns. Kadarius Toney had a huge game against the Dallas Cowboys. It was those smaller guys that kind of gave Dallas some fits. Well, with AB gone, and now it's an aging Julio Jones, and there's some people saying, he's back to old Julio. Look, this guy is not going to have 16, 18, 1900 yards. He's just not going to. So I totally agree. And of course, no Gronk, there's no replacement for Gronk. Man, you bring up a great point. I think that these corners for Dallas match up better with the Tampa Bay receivers this year than they did last year. Now, if, Chris Godwin plays, that may be a little X factor that, but who knows with his situation. He's another guy that's banged up for Tampa Bay on.
He did practice. He did
practice. So going back to your question, though, what part of the Bucs offense makes me feel uncomfortable? You mentioned dinking and dunking and kind of checking down and quick throws. And that's exactly what I have, man. I mean, you hit it right on the head. Is Tom Brady. My biggest fear is seeing Tom Brady counter the Cowboys pass rush with making the pass an extension of the run game. Because I don't know how much of a run game they're going to have either. Shit. Leonard Fournette doesn't scare anybody anymore, But this rookie, Rachaad White, caught somewhere between 40 and 50 balls in college his last year. And we all remember how New England approached the Super Bowl, White. Especially in the set. Yeah, James White, exactly. So, this is, and, coincidentally, a Dan Quinn-led team on that faithful night, So I would not be stunned if we saw a little bit of the same thing, breakout night for Rachaad White. I mean, there's some eerie similarities happening all of a sudden. But, yeah, that's the thing that makes me uncomfortable is, like you said, Tom Brady getting the ball out of his hands quick, using those running backs to check down, and especially if you've got Parsons rushing the A and B gaps, then he's not covering running backs. Now, fortunately for Dallas, Anthony Barr, all right, Jabril Cox, you've got the safeties, you've got Jaron Kearse. I mean, I think that they can get it covered. I think that they've got the guys who can do the job. But I also look at how Tom Brady led teams of the past have handled this type of situation, and they've done extremely well.
Yeah, yeah. This is a great point. And I thought about, believe it or not, I thought about Mike Evans, and not because, like you said, the size aspect, him being a bigger guy. It's also the creativity in which he's used in the red zone, and more so is the Cowboys have an issue last year, at least, with untimely penalties and bad discipline. And I feel like you have to be able to play a guy like Mike Evans within understanding of, hey, I cannot battle him all the way down the field. I have to disengage. I have to separate. And Tampa's very creative in the red zone as well. Now, with no Gronkowski anymore, they're very creative in having Mike Evans find different ways to get open in the red zone. And I think that's my concern, is that they're going to try to capitalize as much as possible in the red zone and utilize Mike Evans. Not between the 20s, not really between the 20s, but down the red zone. That's my biggest concern, is this team being able to stop Tom Brady in the red zone. That's my concern, and Mike Evans being the spotlight for that. So yeah, a little bit tough there.
Yeah, no, and I agree. You know, I mean, Mike Evans has always been tough in the red zone. That's who he is. And what's ironic, as you mentioned, between the 20s, the other guy that we figured that they're going to have, wide receiver 2, Julio Jones, has been quite the opposite throughout his career. Tons of yards, always tons and tons of yards. I think you would be stunned at how few touchdowns Julio Jones has scored throughout his career. I think he's reached double digits once in his NFL. And, you know, you're talking
Very
Julio
true.
Jones. You
Very
know,
true.
there's people who think he's top 5 of all time. And he's always kind of struggled getting in the red zone, in the end zone. And people say, well, once you get down there, you double him. And I'm like, other guys don't get doubled?
Never seen that. Never seen that.
Yeah, I mean, guys, every dude gets doubled. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Mike Evans has been the guy with bad quarterback play in his past, and all he does is put up, 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's all he does.
He's never gotten the Dez. He has never gotten the Dez. Two guys. No, never. We're not doing that.
The guy here,
Yeah.
who just locked on. No.
Nah.
And,
He never got
as a matter of fact, I think Megatron's the only guy I've ever actually seen get that type of double press type of coverage. But I'm with you. I think that Mike Evans is more the red zone guy. Julio is in between the 20s without us really knowing what he's going to be bringing to the table specifically.
That's fair. That's fair. Now, for my favorite part of the show, man, the offense. The Cowboys offense going up against the Bucs defense. So I'll pose the same 2 questions, but I'll flip the order. So I'll go first on this one. My area of concern with this game is going to be, and we talked about it a little bit earlier with Tyler Smith. It's how you play this team. And we know the Bucs. We know Todd Bowles. We know what he likes. It's pressure, pressure, pressure. A lot of blitzes. They're coming in hot, nonstop. And what that means, you must communicate up front. You have to talk. And the other part about this that does not get mentioned a lot is the center. Tyler Biadasz does not make the line calls, right? So
It didn't last year.
He doesn't this year, right? I would think he doesn't.
I still don't know what that's all about. I don't know anyone who does know what that's all about, but it's kind of this, like, the center ain't making the line calls. I mean, what's going on?
Yeah.
I understand he's got Zach Martin there, but it's still kind of like, you're the center,
It takes more time to relay information, though. It takes more time to communicate what has to be done, who's picking up who. And that puts a lot more on the plate of, one, a center who we think might be possibly overpowered by Vita Vea. It's one thing. 2, a guy who's inexperienced at left tackle in the NFL. So it makes things a lot harder for this team. And I think that's my main concern, is the communication up front. How do they handle these blitz packages? That's how I see it. Unless, is there something different that you think might be an area of concern, or a major area of concern with this team on offense?
I also had the Bucs defensive line against this kind of, we're trying to duct tape the offensive line until we can get Jason Peters where we need him, get Tyler Smith to a place that maybe he's better suited for right now, early in his career. Vita Vea is To me, Vita Vea is the most terrifying player on the team. And I understand that they have Tom Brady. I understand that he did have a phenomenal year last year, though he threw it 700 times. I mean, yeah, like they didn't even try to run, you know? But Vita Vea is still the scariest player on this team. Now, Dallas had success, put up 29 points last year, and did that while missing a field goal and an extra point.
Mm-hmm.
But they did that without Zach Martin a year ago. So when you're talking about the Dallas Cowboys shortcomings, yeah, you know, Tyler Smith at left tackle is a concern. Tyler Smith's not going to go up against Vita Vea. Zach Martin, they might kind of try to force that issue, you know, to kind of make sure that the center has a little bit more help if they can. I mean, you know, it all depends on how you're being attacked. And like you said, line calls, things of that nature. Everything is relative to everything. But yeah, that dude terrifies me, man. And then you got Hakeem Hicks, William Golston, and then they also have Logan Hall out of Houston. So they're really loaded up on the defensive line as well. So that is, that's very concerning for me. And what's even more concerning on top of that is we've seen the receiver by committee situation. Now Dak's a better quarterback. We have a CD Lamb this time around. So it's not as bad of a situation.
Yeah.
But with a defensive line that could potentially really cause you problems, and they're definitely going to focus on taking CD Lamb away. You know, outside of that, where are you going in the passing game? I mean, are you going to put that much on Dalton Schultz and Noah Brown? Because I don't love that game plan. But that may be what it comes down to. Can one of those guys be the one who steps up? Because they're going to try to take away CD. And we know the game today.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks are going to throw to their guy. You know, they're gonna give the ball to CD Lamb in some way, shape, or form. But where else can it come from to help relieve that pressure from the offensive line and off of Dak Prescott?
Got one. Zeke. It's Zeke. Because in this game, and I don't mean by as an option in the passing game in the conventional sense, but as a protector. That's the key right there. It's him as a protector being able to occupy those spots. And the guy that I worry about, and I can't say his last name, Tryon Shoyinka, I worry about him too.
No idea.
He's their pick last year, I believe, out of UW, the edge rusher. He's the guy I believe is a very, very good edge player as well. Because people talk about Shaq Barrett a lot, but that guy as an edge rusher is a very good player. And I think you're going to need Zeke to be able to pick up the blitz, maybe chip on his way out, or Dalton Schultz too. I think the protection from your guy, Zeke Elliott, is going to be critical in this game. Critical is Zeke Elliott.
Yeah, and that's exactly how they played him last year. That's what they used him for last year. I mean, you remember it was Dak 400 yards passing, and I think Zeke had somewhere in the close to 40 yards rushing. You know, they really were like, we don't have Zach Martin, and they've got Vita Vea. We're not even going to try this. Dominican Sue last year.
Yeah.
So you could very well be absolutely correct. Now they do want to run the ball more this year. I'm interested to see if they try that approach week one, because they've been very forward about wanting to run the ball. You know, Mike McCarthy is a coy guy when it comes to just some of the weirdest things, but they've said it time and again this summer and this spring, we want to run the football. But you are right. It doesn't seem like this would be the most opportune time to do that for the Dallas Cowboys.
No, sir. The way it's going to play out. And again, I know games don't feel like they don't play out the same way from year to year, and I get that, but you understand who the head coach or former coordinator was, Todd Bowles. You know who he is. You know what his philosophies are. He will not change who he is. He will try to overwhelm you with numbers. That's who he is. And I hope the Cowboys understand that and try not to pound their heads into a wall and run the ball. Open up the passing game, trust Zeke, trust Dak, and do the right thing like Spike Lee, pretty much. So on the other side, what gives you the most confidence in this matchup with the Cowboys offense against the Bucks defense?
So we all remember the atrocity that was the year 2020, right? Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Before Dak Prescott went down, we saw Tyron Smith go down. We never saw Leo Collins, and we also saw Joe Looney go down, right? And so we were playing with a backup, rookie 4th-round pick, Tyler Biadasz. It was not ideal circumstances. But what else was happening? Dak was throwing for like 400 yards. I mean, he was making things happen. And so I think this offensive line is better than that one was. I mean, you were working with 2 undrafted tackles. One of them was a rookie. You were working with a 4th-round rookie center. I mean, you had Zach Martin, but he eventually went down after Dak went down. And then Connor Williams is Connor Williams, so it wasn't a great situation, but Dak was able to still work with it. Now, here's something that I kind of is more just in my own brain and probably doesn't actually have any truth in reality. There's kind of the whispers that the Joneses interfere with how the game plan goes, right? But whenever you have an offensive line like this, I think it kind of gives Dak Prescott and Kellen Moore a little bit of rope to go off of that script, to move away from what they want to do and say, look, this is what we're working with. We got to win ball games. We got to cut this guy loose so that he can go out there and make plays. We can't just, as you said, run and beat your head against a wall just for the sake of running the football. You can't do that. So what gives me a lot of hope is that we've seen Dak Prescott behind worse offensive lines go out and still cut people up to shreds. So that is something that gives me a lot of hope. Also, the fact that I think that this could be Tony Pollard's coming out party. And, you talk about keeping Zeke in there as a blocker. We've seen in the spring and over the summer, Zeke used as a fullback, used as a blocker, while Tony Pollard is on the field. So these could be some things that kind of come to fruition against the Bucks, but I'm really, really looking forward to how Kellen Moore calls this game, but even more so looking forward to Dak just being the guy that he is, being the player that he is that can make magic. And that's what really, really gives me hope is that, I mean, basically the short term of the answer, short form of it is Dak Prescott.
Yeah. And I have the exact same thing written down. I'm not going to lie. It is Dak Prescott. And in a kind of a sad kind of way, it reminds me a lot of the years with Romo, where you knew that the line may not be equipped or prepared, or even the weapons were, complete. But the quarterback was so, understanding of the game as he developed and matured that he could handle it. And it was going to be exciting either way. Like they're going to win with him, or they're going to go down with the ship. And he was going to be the captain of it all the way through. I mean, captain to the letter all the way through. And it's Dak Prescott. It's your seven now. Yeah. And it's just the way he handles himself in the pocket. He's always done this, though. He identifies the blitz pre-snap pretty well, too. That's kind of one of his calling cards. So for me, I'm confident that if Tampa wants to die by old habits, then Dak will put them in that box and bury them under, with the new pallbearers, that being maybe Tolbert, maybe Ferguson. I feel like that's a possibility that maybe Dak can just be Dak, and those guys, he can lead them, they can, carry him. And that may be a theme for the entire season, how this thing plays out. But I do feel very confident, like you said, in Dak Prescott. But I do want to ask you this one bigger picture question. And I think we know how this works. The Cowboys are playing it. We're fans of the Cowboys, so it's always going to be a big deal no matter what happens. But it is a week 1 game. It is a primetime game where we are the only show in town for that time slot. So I have to ask you this question. Win or lose, is this game deemed a statement game for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's Sunday Night Football. It's against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think at least at the end of the fourth quarter, everyone's going to perceive it as a statement game, and they should. I mean, I think that Tampa Bay has a chance to take a step backwards. I think they're going to be much
Hmm.
better defensively this year, but I also think that with your interior offensive line woes, along with Tom Brady's one of the most mentally tough dudes in the world, right? I mean, especially in sports. So maybe it's nothing. Maybe he goes out and at 45 years old still throws for 4,600 yards, 38 touchdowns,
Hmm.
and 4 interceptions. Maybe he's still Tom Brady, but that cliff comes at some point, and I think that this could be a Tampa Bay Bucks team that, you know, at some point in the season, you could possibly see people go, you know what, that it's the best run in football history, but let's start to live without Tom Brady in our lives, but until that happens, you have to assume that Tom Brady is going to be Tom Brady. And so I think, yes, win or lose, kind of like last year,
Yeah.
lost,
Yeah.
lost by two, lost by a field goal and an extra point. And at the end of it, we were all kind of going, hey, we did our thing. We're going to compete. We're going to be out there,
Yeah. Yeah.
playing with the best of the best. They were the reigning Super Bowl champions at the time. So yeah, I do
Fair
think
point.
that it's a statement game. Now we may perceive it differently as the season goes on and as we reach more towards the back third of the season. But I mean, by all intents and purposes, when that clock hits zero in the fourth quarter, everybody's going to look at it as a statement game.
Yeah. And again, you know what? That's the analyst in all of us. Whether we do it for free, for hobby, or we do it just by the water cooler at work. That's the analyst in all of us. Facts, facts, facts. All right, man. So with numbers, give me your player of the game and your prediction for the final score of week 1 against Tampa.
So I'm just going to focus a lot of energy towards manifesting more Tony Pollard in our lives. All
Okay.
right, he's
Okay.
he's no longer the most explosive player on the offense. Now that belongs to Turpin. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we can all say that that's probably the most explosive guy in your tool chest. But Pollard still needs to be utilized more than he was last year. And he took a step forward, getting double digit touches per game. I think he averaged around 11 touches per game. But I really, really believe that he could be that X factor in this ball game. So I've got Tony Pollard at 150 total yards with a touchdown. And I think the Dallas Cowboys win 20-16.
Okay. Okay. So you almost had me convinced, man. I almost changed my picks, almost changed my mind. Um, but sadly, I feel like it's going to be a lot about the communication up front, and I feel like we're going to get into a game where both quarterbacks have a lot of hard time finding traction based on protection, based on just again the noise for Tampa is going to be a big deal there, and our guys, if they're inexperienced, I think it ends up being a game where points are at a premium, and scoring in the red zone will be critical, and that kind of plays into the hands of Mike Evans, who I don't think will have a huge day, but I can see him getting maybe 5-6 catches, 2 touchdowns for like maybe 60 yards. But again, the red zone is a big deal for this team, and I want to see them. Also, haven't talked about this guy. Also, is the kicker. If he messes up, and I feel like he's going to have just one bad kick, whether it's a kickoff, a field goal, extra point, I feel like something will happen where it's impacting the game in some way or another. So I do feel like the Cowboys lose this game, and I hate to say that, but I feel like they lose. And I'm going Dallas losing to Tampa by a score of 23-20.
Yeah, so it's keeping it low scoring. And, just since you brought up the kicker,
Go
I guess
ahead.
we'll go down that path for just a second. It was funny because, Brett Maher was so inconsistent in his time with Dallas. And then he went off, I believe he went to New Orleans and actually had a really good tenure there. I mean, I think that he was nearly perfect on his extra points while in New Orleans, and then he comes back to Dallas, and the first thing he does in a preseason game is shank an extra point. So, to me, I was just kind of like, man, God, really? Why
him? Why him?
I mean, why him? But also, I've had a problem with how this team has handled kicker. Is kind of an afterthought in a lot of ways, but special teams matter. And not only that, but if you look at the top point scorers in the NFL last season, the first 13 of them are kickers. Then you get into running backs, wide receivers, guys who get in the end zone. But I just think that even though it may not need to be a drastic you don't have to put in a ton of resources to getting a kicker by any means. You don't need to draft one in the second round like Tampa Bay once did. But man, I would invest in that at least a little bit if it's going to be the guy who leads my team in points. I mean, points, that's what wins the football game, right? And so, just a little bit of frustration airing out on that front.
I think the problem with that is, and not to go down memory lane or anything like that, but this team, when they invest high in a kicker, it doesn't work out in the draft. When they pay for a guy, it doesn't work out. So they're just saying, let's just scrape the bottom of the barrel and see if we can find a guy, a Dan Bailey, if you're older, a fan of Richie Cunningham, just a guy anywhere you can find that can kind of fill the role. I think that's been their problem. So I don't want to pick a David Buehler. I don't want a Mike Vanderjagt. So I do see where they're coming from, but again, you shouldn't be hesitant to not pull that trigger if the guy can't do the job. That's the problem. Is they try to see the project through to their detriment, to their fault, and that's where we have an issue.
Who was the other kicker? Remember when they had David Buehler, they carried 2 kickers on the roster. Do you remember who that other guy was by chance?
We had a kickoff guy, and we had Buehler, and a guy who kicked was more accurate. It was
because Buehler, they liked his actual special team ability.
He could tackle, he could run, he could kick.
Yeah, he could run and tackle, and that was just like such a waste of a roster spot. Like, man, let Martin Gramatica or whoever it was back then, do that. Even though he was like 5'6", $180 or whatever, but. Man, I
crazy enough to say Nick Folk, and I know that can't be right. They can't be right. But it was a guy that, oh my goodness, because the guy couldn't kick that deep in the end zone. It wasn't Dan Bailey, or was it Dan Bailey?
No, I want to say it was that. I want to say it was Gramatica. They brought him in, or
now I'm getting sidetracked. Now I have to check it. So see what you did. All right, so it's all right. You know what? Tell you what. Let's go through this thing. We're gonna get this. How about that?
I'm curious too. Let me get on it as well. I mean, first one to get there wins, I guess.
Man, look, if it's Bailey, you owe me some Sonic, and it is David Bailey, Dan Bailey. See, told you.
It was Dan Bailey.
Was the other kicker. Here it is, man. As of, I'll tell you right now. As of 2012, 2011. As of 2011, the kickers on your roster for the Dallas Cowboys were Dan Bailey, David Buehler, Chris Jones, LP Ladouceur, me, and Matt McBriar. 2011 Cowboys.
Oh, man. See, I got in, let's see, 2009, you had Nick Folk and David Buehler. Let's see, Folk.
So he survived 2 kickers. 2. Well, I mean,
so, man.
Besides himself.
But he didn't survive, though.
Oh, no. I mean, he lived, just not well, but he
lived. Yeah. Oh, man.
Well,
all right, sorry to get you sidetracked, man.
Oh, no, all good. Look, we always do Cowboys memory lane on here, so if not here on Twitter, so it's all good. But that's kind of my point. I do think that could be an overarching problem. And remember I do not plan to talk special teams, but Bones Fossil has a major influence on what happens with this roster as well, with his guys. So you do want them to not commit to a guy that cannot do the job right away or handle the job for a long period of time, whether that's 2 games, at most maybe 2 games or 3 games, but not half a season and then say, okay, this isn't working out. So there's that feel for the Cowboys. But man, you know how it is though. You're picking a W, I'm picking an L, and we're gonna have to talk about that one somehow, some way. But man, before I get you out of here, tell the people out there, how can we find you on Twitter and all the great work that you do?
At Stevie J PTX is where you can find me on Twitter. Also, I write for Fansided Sport DFW. And hey, if you want to listen to some like Dua Lipa and stuff like that, you can download our app at East Texas Broadcasting for Mix 107.7. I do a little morning show over there as well. Call some high school football. I mean, just trying to do a little bit of everything in this world. So, but mostly Twitter, and then Stevie J PTX, that's where that's at. Right for Sport DFW. And hey, Pick Six Sports. You know, we've got something really nice brewing. We're doing more shows. You know, you're talking about me, Nix, Massey, O, Camber, of course, and Spoonie, all of us. So be sure that you hit those guys up as well. You'll see us around a whole lot. But yeah, man. So just trying to stay busy.
Of course, man. Of course. So guys, if you don't know who this guy is, get to know him. He's around. He's in Cowboys Twitter. He's everywhere. He is the Martin Payne of the South. So definitely tune into this guy on East Texas radio out there. And hey, man, I'm still waiting on my Blackstreet. So, man, play my song, man. Play my song, man. No diggity, right man. On. No diggity. Yeah. But hey, look, man, no doubt it's been great having you on this show. Fantastic time. Guys, for me, LP Cruz, and for my guest, Stevie Johnston, man, this has been LP Cruz on Stonehall Sports. Thanks for watching. And as always, Cowboys up. Peace.